All right, so let's look at dealing with crossface underhook half guard here. So this idea that Damien's putting a crossface on me so I can't turn in towards him. He's done a good job like shutting down my arm here, and so we've got to think about what direction we can go in. Now, generally speaking, deep half guard is not my preferred type of guard to play, but it is a guard that we can play, especially when someone's done a good job getting past our elbows, getting past our knees here, getting chest to chest. This is when deep half starts to become very viable. So similar to when we've talked about like the key idea with deep half guard, where what I'm looking to try and do is make sure I get my right arm underneath Damien's leg. But the biggest mistake is people try and go towards the leg that's closer to the head rather than aiming for the leg that is between my legs here. The reason why is I want to make sure I can actually have effect on Damien's hips and bring him over my left shoulder. So when I'm working here, especially like his knees off the floor, which means that knee levers are no longer an option. If Damien's knee is down, for example, knee levers become a great option here, but his knee is up, means that knee levers aren't viable here. I can potentially try and work towards half butterflies, but with the strong crossface, now we're getting into territories of him either like, hip switching off, for example, him starting to step over my knee here to try and pass. So I think one of the more robust options is going to be taking my arm here. I'm fighting to bring it inside, and I want to look to place my palm on my quad here. And the idea is I'm using my knees, using my arm to end up bumping Damien's hips forward. Now, what happens in an ideal world here is that I'm using this to then continue out the back, trying to wrestle up, pull back to a guard, things like this here.
Super quickly, if you're enjoying the video, like and subscribe.
So if I try and go underneath Damien's right leg, notice I can't really have an effect on his hips. So instead I'm trying to go underneath his, if I go under his left leg, if I go under his right leg here, and I'm pulling my knees up and over my shoulder here, so now my arm can be used to bump Damien's hip. Now if we rotate a little bit. So when we're here, what I'm thinking about doing is getting his hips over my head, and even though he hangs on to this underhook here, what I can think about doing is as I'm coming out the back door, as long as he doesn't have wrist control on me here, I can think about pulling my elbow through, then now I've managed to escape myself from the half guard. But the number one thing we've got to worry about here, because it's hard for us to actually just clear the elbow control, is going to be denying him wrist control. Damien manages to make an exchange. So we just come back one step. Just going straight for the Kimura here, exactly. Like once Damien actually starts getting control of my wrist, now what happens is we get into this territory where we're locking our hands together and we're worried about him putting our arm behind our back. If I have to, I will look to try and address wrist control immediately, and I want to be quite mobile with my left arm here to make sure he can't get control of my wrist. I'm always looking to try and hide my wrist in some fashion. Ideally, I'd like to pummel it all the way through here and frame inside of his armpit if I have the opportunity to, because now this is very, very safe for my arm, very hard for him to actually get control of my wrist, because now when he tries to make that exchange there, I can make this quite difficult for him, and I'm looking to try and make my way out the back. Now, one of the main issues you'll run into is people looking to try and spin towards the triangle here. I mainly focus on trying to turn back in towards Damien, making sure his leg stays between my knees here. And then now, again, without any sort of wrist control, we're starting to look to use this to then pummel and get into strong passing position. So if we do that from the other side, please. So main thing here, if I'm worried about him going in towards triangles, is I'm turning back in towards him here. But I need to make sure, again, he doesn't get wrist control. Damien starts getting wrist control here. Now this is going to be bad for me because I start trying to come up on top. He's putting my arm behind my back. We're ending up in pretty poor situations, and this is not ideal. So that denial of wrist control is key. So long as he can't get my wrist, we have good viability of getting up on top. But that said, I can't just allow him to take his leg out the middle, because then he can just start locking the triangle. So again, I'm working for my deep half here. He has control of my arm. I want to make sure Damien can't bring his leg out from the middle here, so I've got to be very, very careful of this here. I'm generally thinking about denying wrist control, trying to turn up and towards him. I've got to stay quite active with this arm. One of the concerns is going to be as I get up on top, this sort of Udagatami threat, I can think about taking my head over my hand here, looking to try and slip my wrist, slip my elbow, making sure that he doesn't have good effect on my arm. Or I can start thinking about turning my arm back the other way here, again denying that wrist control, making sure I'm staying inside of his legs, then looking to try and make my way past. So this is just a very effective way of actually dealing with crossface underhook. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not getting put into hot water having to deal with some of these situations, but the alternative is going to be is that he's passing your guard. Competition, we're talking about like then having to fight back from being passed and mounted. Just the fact that being mounted, just being mounted in general is not ideal. So I think this is a better pathway to go down where you are going to face adversity, going into deep half guard, having to deal with triangles, things like this, but this is better than just accepting the alternative.
If you're enjoying the content, check out Atomic Dojo, where you get access to online jiu-jitsu coaching. It's over 1,000 videos, you can ask questions and even get feedback on your rolling. Link down below.